is for the win. This 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 is for the win. 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 This is for the win.
All right, welcome back to the CPENN4THEWIN Show. This is your host, Charles Penn. This is episode number 16. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share on all your social media platforms. On today's episode, the NBA is right around the corner. As we get close to the regular season next week, Lakers and Clippers will be, we got Lakers and Clippers, but before that, we also got Golden State and Brooklyn. So a nice little doubleheader to start out the NBA year. We'll get into that later on. And I may have a special NBA season preview episode coming up as well after the show. So stay tuned for that. Shoot.
You good? You good?
Okay. Yeah, just cut that out.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. All right. So first things first here. Everybody's seen here, Giannis Antetokounmpo has decided to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks. He signed the largest SuperMax in NBA history, 5 years, $228.2 million, which, like I said, is the largest deal in NBA history. As everybody knows, he's a two-time NBA MVP now, and he just became the third player in NBA history to win an MVP and a Defensive Player of the Year, joining Hakeem Olajuwon and Michael Jordan on that list. Now, Defensive Player of the Year, I felt like there was two players that was better than him, in my opinion, that should have won the award. But, after seeing all the metrics and everything, and then, of course, seeing Giannis out there playing, I can kind of see where it came from, but still, I felt like there was two players better that could have been in more consideration for the Defensive Player of the Year award. But nonetheless, congratulations to Giannis. Giannis is going to be the cornerstone of a small market franchise, and I think that's big for small franchises here in the NBA, because the NBA, to me, is lacking parity right now. We need that parity back in our league to make it at least more competitive again, because, I grew up in the 90s and everything, born in the late 80s, and there was a lot more parity back in the NBA. Like, when the NBA was being promoted, through NBA on NBC, for instance, there was like, they would always introduce the teams as like the star of the team, and then they announce the team. Or they'll talk about like the two stars of the team. If there was like a duo, it was like a duo for each team, or the teams that had duos. And it just goes to show that there is an opportunity for players in small markets to make a lot of this money. I don't know about $228 million, but you never know. There could be somebody better than Giannis down the line that makes more than that on their Supermax if they want to stay with a franchise that they got drafted from. So, congratulations to Giannis on that mark. And we'll see if Milwaukee can contend for a championship moving forward. And we'll see if Milwaukee can join Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson as an NBA champion one day. Now, I want to talk about the main culprit here. Everybody's favorite player, LeBron James. All right, he talked about Giannis's contract, and he said that, he was happy for Giannis in the situation. But here's the thing. Here's where LeBron made a mistake there. I felt like LeBron showed a little bit of insecurity in regards to his response. Now, he was saying that, he was comparing the situation like, our situations are different and everything as far as like the contracts and stuff, because LeBron, he just signed a 2-year extension for $85 million. So he has a little more time to catch Kareem, maybe, and play with his son before he retires. Do the Ken Griffey Sr., Ken Griffey Jr. thing. Now, the way LeBron answered this question, I felt like LeBron showed a little bit of insecurity. It just felt like LeBron was just checking another man's pockets. I just felt like LeBron should have just congratulated the man, and then just be like, I don't get involved in player contract situations of that nature. And the reporter was segue to LeBron's situation in Cleveland, like before he left Cleveland, seeing that LeBron could have stayed and signed like I wouldn't say similar deal, but a max deal to stay in Cleveland and everything. But LeBron decided not to. He decided to go to Miami. It just felt like, to me, LeBron just kind of came off as somebody who's not really happy and not really secure in his own legacy, as far as him finally win his fourth championship, and of course, like I said, getting his extension. It just felt like LeBron is just, I don't know. It felt like he's not getting the attention that he thought he would get just coming off this championship. And I just feel like LeBron could have went about it a different way. Just go ahead and congratulate the man and just not answer the question in that matter. And that's just my opinion of it. But, speaking of the Lakers, we're going to talk a little bit about the preseason. Let's talk about Talen Horton-Tucker. He's been the talk of the NBA preseason so far, and rightfully so. This young kid has been on a monster. It's been a monster, and it got to the point where Kendrick Perkins, he said that Talen Horton-Tucker, he may be on the path, similar to how Kobe was when Eddie Jones was still on the Lakers, and Eddie Jones eventually had to get traded. And that could be a possibility because Kyle Kuzma is still being, the culprit of trade rumors and everything. So it's possible that Talen Horton-Tucker could get his opportunity to play more minutes this year. And rightfully so. I feel like the kid is ready to play more minutes and play in the league. You see this kid, he's dropping 28 points, dropping 29. And yeah, he's had a few games of that nature in the preseason. Now, the thing with the preseason is I feel like everybody is, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are still putting a lot of stock of preseason in. In the preseason, these guys are going full. They aren't going 100% and everything, with a few exceptions like the New York Knicks with Tom Thibodeau. Thibodeau, he thinks it's the NBA playoffs right now. The guy's playing hard and everything. But back to the Lakers. I feel like, of course, in my season preview, I'm going to have the Lakers in contention for the finals and, most likely win the chip again. That'd probably be the likely scenario. But Talen Horton-Tucker, I would definitely like to see this kid get the opportunity to play some minutes because I was originally high on the kid when he got drafted. Like, I seen him play at Iowa State, and I seen the potential and everything. And he's starting to grow into his own. So it'll be interesting to see what he does when these games actually count and we finally get the opportunity to play some crucial key minutes off the bench, more than likely. And maybe he will start eventually. We'll just have to see what happens with that. It's the new look Brooklyn Nets with KD and Kyrie. It was great to see KD back on the court and Kyrie back on the court as well. Those guys have been going through some injuries here in these past few years. And KD definitely went through a serious one with his Achilles injury he suffered in the 2018 NBA Finals. So it's been a minute for KD. I meant 2019 NBA Finals, excuse me. Now, Kevin Durant, he went on ahead, he put up a nice 15, 3-3 in 24 minutes, and Kyrie had 18 points and 4 assists against the Washington Wizards the other night. But here's the interesting part. Here's the interesting part about this duo. Now, before they played their first preseason game, Kyrie went on IG Live with Kevin Durant, and they was having a conversation about how they was going to work things out on the court this year, going over the little game plan and how they're going to attack defenses and everything. But the funniest part was that Kyrie was trying to convince Kevin Durant that he could play in the post more and he could use some more post-ups. And Kyrie was trying to get his little Kobe bag because Kyrie is a Kobe disciple. Him and Kobe had that close relationship before Kobe passed and everything, dating all the way back to the Olympics a few summers ago back in 2012. And Kyrie was joking around with Kobe, act like he was going to challenge him to a game of one-on-one, which that never happened. Or if it did happen, we just don't know about it yet. Maybe we'll know one day. But anyway, Kyrie was trying to make that case for Kevin Durant to look for him more often in the post. KD was like, yeah, we're going to see, though. and that was pretty funny because Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant knows he's a better player than Kyrie overall, and this is going to be more of KD's team. Like Kyrie, he's still kind of in his head that, that he'll be the main guy and everything, but it's going to be interesting to see how these guys mesh well together. You just got to hope that at some point during the season they don't clash and, a ticking time bomb happens eventually and it's going to throw the Brooklyn Nets off course. Because on paper, the Brooklyn Nets have a lot of talent. Besides those two, you got Jared Allen, you got Karis LeVert, you got Spencer Dinwiddie, DeAndre Jordan. You still got Joe Harris. That was a big sign to bring him back. You got Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, and you also added Jeff Green. And that was old KD's old running mate back in Seattle / Oklahoma City. And then you also got Taurean Prince. So this team is pretty deep. On paper, this team should be like a top 4 team in the East. You just got to see how everybody's going to mesh well together, and the chemistry got to get down packed. So these guys have a few games left here in the preseason to get all the way down, and we're going to see what happens when these games count, especially open night when they go up against Golden State. That's going to be fun. All right, and let's get on to James Harden here. James Harden kind of ballooned a little bit showing up in preseason the other night. He went up against the Spurs, I believe, and he kind of looked like James Harden. You know what I mean? He kind of looked like James Harden out there, but at the same time, you could tell that he gained like at least 10 pounds and not a little more. It was funny, like when he was warming up before the game, they made him look bigger than what he was actually on the court. I don't know if it was like a certain angle or anything, but it looked like he was throwing down some Big Macs and quarter pounders and all kinds of burgers in the off season. But he almost kind of looked like Kendrick Perkins weight in a sense. Nah, but yeah, you know that crossover video he did. You know that little and1 mixtape video he did. Nah, but James, he kind of like James, but there was one possession in particular in which James Harden claimed that he wasn't ready to receive the pass. Like, I remember James Harden, he was getting the ball in the wing, and he had drove to the basket, and the defense collapsed on him. He passed it back out, and then the ball swung around a bit, swung to the corner, and somebody drove to the basket, and James Harden was open underneath the basket, and James just flat out dropped the ball, like forget it. And it didn't seem like James Harden was ready for it. It didn't seem like James Harden was sincere when he said he was ready for the pass, but I don't know. I just don't know if James Harden is bought all the way into this current situation. Like James, he's still trying to find a way out as far as getting a trade and everything, but I just don't see how James Harden is able to be traded at this point. I mean, there's still the possibility of Philadelphia. I mean, that's the main team everybody talks about. You know, between him and Ben Simmons and some draft picks. And we just got to see about that. But at the end of the day, I think James Harden should really try to continue to work his way back into shape and try to stick things out in Houston. Because Houston, they're not a bad team still. Like, you just gotta hope John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins are still healthy. And then you still got PJ Tucker, you still got a decent core and everything. I know James Harden. I know the real reason why James Harden is upset in his current situation is that nobody told him, and nobody in the Houston Rockets organization told him that they was going to trade Robert Covington, and that kind of set everything off. And that's the reason why James Harden and the front office are currently having this rift right now. So we just got to see everything plays out. Hopefully James Harden can come out and ball and be the guy that he's always been. Now, let's get on to the National Football League. All right, to start things off here in the National Football League, we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens game on Monday night. And that game is right up there as far as game of the year. I was saying after the game, I wasn't ready to put it over Buffalo or Arizona, but after consideration, I mean, you might have to put this recent game over that game. It's just kind of hard because like DeAndre Hopkins just jumping over 3 defenders and posterizing cats, like I don't know. I just didn't see another game topping that ending. But Cleveland and Baltimore, they put on the show and they both put up 40 points. Baltimore won by the final score of 47-42. Now, this was a wild game overall. Like, you just had everything that you didn't think that was going to happen in this particular game. Now, here's the thing here. Baltimore in the second half of this game, everybody knows, both teams were scoring, both teams was running all over each other, really. Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, and J.K. Dobbins, they all ate in the running game. They all had great games in the running game. And then on Cleveland, Nick Chubb did his thing. Kareem Hunt did his thing too. There was a lot of rushing touchdowns in this game. I want to say overall there was 9 rushing touchdowns in this game. We haven't seen that in quite a long time, and I don't know if we've seen that ever in NFL history. I would have to go back and double check that, but 9 rushing touchdowns is a lot. Lamar Jackson in particular, he had a great game. People, they want to see Lamar Jackson throwing the 200s at least a little more often, maybe have a 300-yard game every now and then. But I think we have to realize that Lamar Jackson, he can get better as a passer. I still think he can get a little better outside of hash marks, but I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to be a guy you're going to see him consistently hit the 200 marks in passing yards. Lamar, you just got to let him be him. You got a game plan around him. And in Baltimore in particular, they did a good job. Cleveland, they couldn't stop the run, and Baltimore pretty much stuck with it. And Lamar only had to throw the ball 17 times, but Lamar completed 11 of those passes for 163 and a touchdown, which is not bad. Seeing that he nearly threw like a first down per attempt, that's pretty good in my opinion. And then he also had 124 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. That's 3 total touchdowns. And you talking about almost 300 yards of offense himself. I said that's a great game from Lamar, and I think that was the best performance he had all year long. Now, I want to talk about how Lamar Jackson just randomly had to disappear from the game. He had to excuse himself from the game all of a sudden. And a lot of jokes came along with it. People saying he had to go to the bathroom, he had to do number 2 and all that other stuff. And there's all kinds of memes and stuff going around, and especially like with him trying to run back onto the field. There's camera footage of him, leaving the locker room, whatever, and jogging and get back on the field. And people were saying like, I know that walk, I know that jog. Lamar didn't wipe well, and blah, blah, blah. But the jokes was pretty funny. But Lamar did confirm after the game that it was actual calf cramps, and he said that he ain't got a calf. In his own words, that it was actually some calf cramps. So, I believe Lamar Jackson. It's just that the memes and the jokes were pretty funny. Now, I want to get back to the game here. When Baltimore was up by double digits and Lamar had to excuse himself from the game, this is what killed me. Like, they completely went away from the running game. Like, you just completely forgot about your running backs when Lamar went out the game, and you still trying to run the same stuff with Trace McSorley. And Trace McSorley is nowhere near the type of player Lamar Jackson is. And this has been the problem with another team in the National Football League, like the Chicago Bears with Nick Foles. People was blaming Nick Foles because Nick Foles wasn't playing up to par. And I said that the Bears aren't calling plays that fit his strengths. They still trying to rush Mitch Trubisky stuff. And this was the same case here. And it caused Cleveland to get back in that game. And Baker Mayfield, shout out to him. He showed up big. He did have the one crucial interception that could have put the game out of reach. But, thanks to Baltimore's questionable coaching, he had more opportunities to get himself back right, and he led the Cleveland Browns back in the game. And particularly Cleveland Browns, they did come back and take the lead by 1 point. Seeing that they did go for 2 the possession before, and they converted. Analytics. They went the analytics route, and they succeeded. Now, Baltimore was very fortunate that after Trace McSorley got hurt on another dumb call in which they tried to run an option with him, knowing that he doesn't have the legs and all that, and knowing that you're down to 1 quarterback because RG3 was already out. I think RG3 is on IR, and we don't know he's going to come back this year. And after that, right when McSorley got hurt, right when they held him off the field, Lamar Jackson came on the field all of a sudden. Now, Baltimore could have really been in a situation like how Denver was when they had to play a wide receiver for 1 week against New Orleans recently, in which I think that was dumb. Which is crazy as heck. I felt like that game could have been pushed back. But, the NFL, they only care about certain teams. But anyway, back to this particular game. This is why I say that Lamar had the best performance of the year. Lamar Jackson came back in that game. I believe it was on 3rd and 10. He came back in the game. First play, scrambles to the right. The cornerback and linebacker was seeing that Lamar Jackson was scrambling. I think it was cornerback and linebacker and safety. I can't exactly remember. But they collapsed on Lamar all of a sudden, seeing that he was running for the first. But they forgot about Hollywood Brown. They completely ignored him. And Lamar was like, I got you, sucker. He throws it up top to Marquise Brown, running wide open down the field for a touchdown. And that was a huge play for Baltimore because Baltimore was losing momentum in that game. They came back into the lead. And then after that, Baker, Baker drives down the field, 2-minute drill and everything, successful 2-minute drill. He finds Kareem Hunt out of the backfield for a screen, and he runs it in for a touchdown. And Cleveland battles back, and they tie up the game. But then Lamar Jackson shows more of his brilliance as well on this drive. After the game was tied, he finds Mark Andrews twice down the field, and he also finds Willie Snead down the field to set them guys up in the field goal range. And Justin Tucker, he's the money man. He's the best. He's arguably one of the best kickers in NFL history, and he kicked one down the pipe from 55 yards, and Baltimore won the game. But it gets crazier. This game gets crazier because, believe it or not, the spread was 3.5. And at this point, Cleveland was covering. Cleveland got the ball back. They tried to do some trickeration. They tried to throw it back and everything. And they kept throwing the ball backwards, trying to do the lateral and everything. And then all of a sudden, they find themselves getting a safety. Baltimore gets a safety and covers. And Cleveland bettors was in distraught, man. Like, oh, it was crazy, man. Like, if you was a Cleveland bettor, dude, like, I felt sorry for you. Because I had Baltimore covered, but not like that, man. Not like that. So I'll have to say that this was the game of the year. It's the wildest game of the year. And credit to Baltimore. Baltimore needed this win. They still in the playoff hunt, and they got an easy schedule up ahead. This week, they got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They should be able to handle them at home. And then the rest of the schedule, you got the Giants, and I believe the Bengals. So the Baltimore Ravens should win out. Now, they may need a little help still, but if they win out, things might play in their favor. We'll just have to see what happens with that. All right, let's get to the game of the week here. We got the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs going against the New Orleans Saints. These are the only two winning teams going against each other this week in Week 15. These two teams are currently the number one seeds in their respective conferences. And there's a report that Drew Brees has been practicing this week, and he's likely to return this Sunday from the punctured lung and broken ribs that he suffered a few weeks ago. I believe it was against the 49ers he suffered that injuries against. And right when I seen the initial report by Adam Schefter saying that the Saints is going to hold Drew Brees out, I didn't believe that at first. I'm like, no way. The NFL has a lot riding on this game. The Saints got a lot riding on this game. They still battling for a number one seed with the Green Bay Packers right now. So, I mean, Drew Brees, there was no way Drew Brees was going to be out for this long and not play this game. I was confident that Drew Brees was playing this week. Now, before I deep dive into the game a little bit, I want to talk about Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is currently leading the National Football League in receiving yards with 1,250. And he also has 90 catches for 9 touchdowns. Now, we all know that no tight end in NFL history has ended the regular season as the receiving yards leader. And Travis Kelce is on pace to be the first ever to do it in NFL history. And with that being said, I say that's Offensive Player of the Year worthy, in my opinion. Now, you got Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's on pace for a 2,000-yard season. You got Dalvin Cook and then Patrick Mahomes. But the NFL is going to focus more on Patrick Mahomes going after the MVP award. So I don't know about him winning the Offensive Player of the Year award. But Travis Kelce, I think he's done enough to be the Offensive Player of the Year, especially if he ends up being the national receiving yards leader. And he's about to get double-digit touchdowns like his teammate Tyreek Hill. And also, Travis Kelce about to catch over 100 passes. So why wouldn't he be the Offensive Player of the Year? And especially if the Chiefs win out. The Chiefs go 15-1 too. I mean, Travis Kelce got to be the Offensive Player of the Year. I'm sorry. You just had to. And that's just going to elevate his status even more in his future first ballot Hall of Fame career. So, and I think Patrick Mahomes is going to try to get him to that mark. Those two have been on a roll. Travis Kelce, the past 2 weeks, and these are spooky numbers. The past 2 weeks, he's had 8 catches for 136 yards and a touchdown in both games. Against Miami and Denver, he had that same stat line. And that's pretty crazy. So, we're just going to see what happens with that. But the deep dive in the game a little further, I also seen a report for the Chiefs is that the Chiefs, they might be in a bit of trouble as far as offensive line. Eric Fisher has missed 2 practices with a back injury, and his status is questionable. Damian Wilson, he may be out for another week. His status is currently questionable. And then Mitchell Schwartz, we don't know if he's ready. You want to know if he's ready to go or not. I think he has a back injury himself. So if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have his starting offensive line, really, he could be in a bit of trouble because the Saints right now, they're currently second overall in defense or second in DVOA. So the Saints got a pretty good defense. And for the Chiefs, you really don't want Patrick Mahomes running around running for his life. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes can't win the game with his feet and everything, because we've seen it earlier in the year against the Chargers. He was basically running for his life and made something happen, and they came away with the win. It's just because he's that good. But you would love for Patrick Mahomes to be protected even better. And I watch the Chiefs closely, of course, more than any other NFL team, and they do have some offensive line issues. Andrew Wiley, I feel like you can put somebody else in there for him, in my opinion. And I also feel like, Steven Wisniewski. Here's my thing. Steven Wisniewski, the Chiefs just signed him back to the team. I just want to know if he's ready to go, because I feel like he needs to be in the game over Wiley, because Wiley has not been good, in my opinion, as far as protecting Pat. And it was one particular play last week when Travis Kelce went one-on-one with his defender and mossed him and everything. Wiley just left this man unblocked, basically. Like, he chipped him and he went to double team with Ryder. Like, Ryder already had his man blocked. Like, he didn't need a double team. And as a result, he out here letting Pat get killed. And Pat had to throw the ball with his back foot, but Pat had all the trust in Travis, and Travis caught the ball. So, offensive line definitely needs some new starters in there. Starting with him, and I also like to see them with Kilgore instead of Ryder. I feel like he's better than Ryder than me. But hopefully, Patrick Mahomes has his offensive line fully healthy right before the playoffs. But for this particular game, it might be a little rough. He's going to have to make something happen. At the end of the day, though, the Chiefs got a couple guys from the LSU coming back home. Tyrann Mathieu, he's probably amped up and jacked up and ready to go and make something happen. He probably wants to still collect rent, add another interception or say rent payment or whatever. And then you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He played at LSU as well. And Darrell Williams. So those are two running backs. They would probably want to come out and show something in front of their home state and everything. So, and then on the Saints side, there's one thing that the Saints like to do, with Drew Brees at the helm. Drew Brees like to throw that slant with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas likes running those short routes quite often. And he likes to run intermediate routes too, but Michael Thomas is definitely a run after the catch type of guy. That's what he does best. And in order for the Chiefs to stop that, they really got to get physical with him a little bit. And to make it a little tougher on Drew Brees. But Drew Brees, throughout the years, we know how good he is. He can find other guys to get involved. Jared Cook, he's still one of the best tight ends in the league, per se. And then you got the young Traquan Smith. He's coming along. And then you got a savvy veteran in Emmanuel Sanders. And then, of course, you can't forget about Alvin Kamara out the backfield. Like, he's one of the most explosive weapons in the National Football League. So, at the end of the day, man, I think the Chiefs find a way to pull it out, despite Patrick Mahomes maybe down a few offensive linemen. And I think the Chiefs can go ahead and pull it out 27-24. They'll win by a field goal. Right now, at the beginning, the Chiefs were favored by 3.5. It's cut down to 3. So, it's either going to be a push or the Saints cover, depending on when you got the line. So the Chiefs, I believe they go 13-1, and they get closer to being the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. And then the Saints will still have to be in that battle with Green Bay for the number 1 seed in the NFC. We have some breaking news here for the Major League Baseball here. We haven't talked about baseball in a while, but this is a pretty historical moment for Major League Baseball. Everybody knows that the Negro Leagues Baseball has been around for a long time, a very, very long time. There's a bunch of great players that came from the Negro Leagues and played in the Major Leagues. You got great players such as, Hank Aaron, you got Josh Gibson, Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson, and Satchel Paige, just to name a few. And the MLB decided to go ahead and include the Negro Leagues Museum. I mean, not Negro Leagues Museum, but Negro Leagues in the record books. So their stats are going to count towards the MLBs. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how the record books show and everything. And it's going to be like this home run. It's going to be interesting to see how home runs get altered and batting averages and runs and stuff of that nature. But the Negro Leagues, I say this: the black players that came from the Negro Leagues, they helped elevate Major League Baseball, in my opinion. And just for some of the Negro Leaguers to make that transition to the Major Leagues was huge. And you see the impact they've made over the years. So I think it's a monumental moment for Major League Baseball to go ahead and make that move. And it's gonna be interesting. And there's some mixed reactions, of course, to the news and everything. There's some baseball purists and everything that's like, oh, really? But to me, if it wasn't for some of the Negro Leaguers, we don't know how the MLB would be. Like, the MLB wouldn't be as big like how it is today, in my opinion. Now, the MLB today, there is a scarce amount of black players in the major leagues, but there is some hope. Seattle Mariners, they had the most black players on their team in the major leagues this past season. And then you got a star coming up in Tim Anderson. And Tim Anderson, Tim Anderson from the Chicago White Sox, by the way. I feel like he's a guy that can help elevate the game. And I feel like MLB needs guys like him in order to start elevating their game and marketing their game again, because that's where the MLB is kind of lacking. I feel like the MLB needs that marketing, and I feel like you get more interest out of the youth moving forward if you let guys like Tim Anderson be themselves. And I feel like MLB should let athletes be a little more boisterous. And I will say, like, this past season, during their 60-game shortened season, they did let players express themselves a little more as far as celebrating and everything and showing passion and everything. And I feel like MLB needs more of that so they can grow their game again. So big congrats to Major League Baseball and big congrats to the Negro Leagues for coming together and making this monumental event happen. Now, to conclude today's show, I just want to get a little serious real quick as far as all the professional sports leagues as a transition to the news regarding MLB and the Negro Leagues. From what I have observed, ever since the NBA preseason started back up and everything, you don't really see them promoting Black Lives Matter anymore and everything. And from the beginning, I just felt something funny about that. And because during the time of the bubble, with the Kenosha shooting happening with Jacob Blake, and all the players was considering sitting out until something was done. I felt like the players could have really had the power in that situation. And there were some differences regarding a few players. Players wanted to continue the season, and guys wanted to sit out the rest of the season and actually make a difference. And that's where a rift happened. And then essentially the players gave the power back to the owners, and they went ahead and decided to go ahead and play. And you also see with other leagues too, like NFL and MLB, they had it promoted on their fields and everything. But ever since that shooting, ever since Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, there really hasn't been much done, in my opinion, in regards to that. And I just felt like all these guys were just actors, in my opinion. And I felt like there wasn't much of a difference made. And I'm all for the players in this aspect, because I feel like the owners make enough money as it is. I'm sorry. I just feel like the owners make enough money as it is, and they can do a better job as far as doing a little more in the communities, especially the communities in need. And I just feel like until the players really realize what type of power they have inside of them, we're just going to be in the same situation in regards to possible black trauma in the future. And I just feel like players can really step up and really realize the type of power they have, and we can progress a little more as a country, in my opinion. So that's all I have to say about that. And moving forward, I just hope these guys realize what they're really worth and actually make a real sacrifice to make something happen. And that's just my opinion on that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and end the show on that note. Now, like I said earlier in the show, there is going to be a NBA season preview special. So stay tuned for that. But also I want to announce that with the holidays coming up and everything, you know, we got Christmas Eve, Christmas coming up, we got New Year's and New Year's Eve. This might be the last show of 2020. You never know. But things could change. I may update some people. I may do another show here and there to conclude 2020. But if this is the last show of 2020, I just want to thank all my subscribers. I want to thank all my followers on all my social media platforms for tuning in every week and showing the support. And I just want to give a few shout outs in particular, especially the guys on YouTube that I met who did it this time. He's shown a lot of love. You know, he's seen my content. I've seen his content on his channel, and he's shown me a lot of love. He's giving me a shout out quite often on his videos. So salute to that, brother. Want to thank you for your support. Welcome to HDTV. That's another guy that's showing a lot of support. I want to thank him as well. He showed me a lot of love and shouted me out quite often too on his videos. Carcino for Life, that's another one. I want to shout him out. And then of course, family members as well, particularly my mom. Love you. Little sister, I love you. Pops, you know, my stepdad and my brothers, you know, all my family that showing support. I want to thank them. And of course, my close friends as well. You know you are, you know, my boy Jeff and many others. So with that being said, that's going to conclude episode 16. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for showing me support for this year of 2020. And we'll go into 2021 stronger. And even though we're in this pandemic right now, it's going to get better eventually. You know, just hang in there. You know, just keep doing what you're doing, grinding and everything. And everything's going to eventually work out. So with that being said, until the next episode, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas as we go into 2021. I'm out of here.